Boom! And just like that, we are live. How's it going? As always, Nate Mumford, Director of Sales Engineering here with RCS. How you doing? Welcome to a Thursday, another RCS Live, of course, every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Today, we're going to be talking all about GSelector, specifically for our, Selector version 12 and version 15 users, all of the great things that we have over in GSelector. Come on in. The water's warm. It's great. A lot of great features. I can tell you my experience from switching over to version 12 to GSelector as a PD and all of that great stuff. So as always, we have our chat and our comments on here. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, YouTube Live, and all of that good stuff. Good morning, everybody. And there's always an archive, as you know, of past videos over at rcsworks.com/rcs-live. Housekeeping to get out of the way. Don't forget about your backups, right? Data exchange, backup paths. Always looking for beta testers as well for GSelector 5.0 or Zetta 521.2. We're looking for beta users right now. And we're really excited to see you live in person. I just texted a couple PDs and friends of mine who are going to be at CRS this year. That's February 23rd and 24th over in Nashville. So if you're going to be there, stop by, say hi. If you have some questions for me or the team, whoever it may be, schedule some time. Let us reach out to wherever you are. Again, on all those social medias, we have our chat open here as well. But as I always say, we're here to help. So you got questions and you're curious, we'll be there live hanging out. So let us know what we can do. Don't forget, we've got some great RCS lives coming up for you in the future. There's a full list right here that I'll show you as well. So some great topics coming up. If there's something we're missing or you got an idea on a certain topic, let me know and we'll toss it into the mix as well, right? Oh, look at that. More delightful spam, right, Corey? All right, let's dive right into here and talk about our good friend GSelector. So I thought if you're, let's say, an existing GSelector user, I got some little tips and tricks for you as well to show you using the software. So yeah, version 12, the DOS. Listen, I could put the fear into you, and that's not what we want to do here. The reality is that Selector was phenomenal. It did what you wanted it to do. But if you're like me, your role is expanding as a programmer. And, GSelector is not a brand new piece of software. It's 15 plus years old, something like that. And so we have a lot of different users who have, paved the way for us and then some. And, we have added these great features inside of GSelector as well, so that we're evolving as the landscape is evolving. Like, so for example, a quarter-hour scheduling, right? Stuff like that. We have inside of GSelector, the flex clocks. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit. Just a lot of highlights here on some of the great features over in GSelector, right? And so the idea, like I can tell you from me personally, right? So this is an enterprise solution. What do we mean by an enterprise solution? It means that you have all of your stations in one database. And by the way, if you're, let's say, a regional PD, or you have some other stations that you oversee in different clusters, we could always reference those clusters as well. It's very common to have, let's say, a regional VP of programming to have, let's say, 5 markets and keep it simple. And you can go and actually pop in and make live changes to all 5 of those markets. Or if you're like me, I had 4 radio stations and I was building, I think I had 2 already on version 12, and I was going to build 2 more in addition. And so for me, I always was toggling between stations, right? And with version 12, it's just old 1980s technology. GSelector is modern. We're evolving. That's part of what we're doing in GSelector 5.0 is we're adding some of that back end, that scalability with additional new features as well. And so for me, it's very common to be working, let's say, an RCS alternative, which is one of the stations in my enterprise. And then I got a question from my boss or a listener or whatever it is asking about RCS Hot AC. So I can jump to RCS Hot AC and then toggle back to RCS alternative, returning to where I was working inside that workspace versus version 12, which is we go in, we go out, we go in, we go out. Yeah, absolutely. But the beauty here is that the goals and rule-based scheduling of GSelector, and I want to make sure I talk about the goals and rule-based scheduling, right? the idea is that you can still do the same things you do in version 12 over in GSelector, right? And as I said, I got the chat open here. So if there's some kind of task or something that you want to see done from version 12 in GSelector, let me know. Of course, otherwise, just give me a buzz, a ring, or social media, whatever. If you're watching this afterwards on our archive, comments, we'll take a look at it and answer your questions for you as well. But again, you can do the same exact things. I always tell users who are in Selector version 12, don't forget, we have this thing called a mouse now. Yeah, it turns out it's really, really handy when you're working. And so what I personally do is I find myself when I'm in these types of, let's say, the library, the goals, the clocks, the scheduler, I'm really working on my mouse. But then when I jump in like the editor, for example, I am back in my keyboard, right? I'm back over here. Let me pick a live day, actually, now that I think about it. I'm going to go jump to the 17th. And look at this navigation, by the way. I'm going to jump to, say, 12 o'clock or something, right? Now, I'm back using my keyboard, up and down, hitting K for consideration, finding a new song. I'm moving very quickly here, just kind of talk about this. But the F7, if you're like me, I was obsessed with my grid down here, my history map. And look at this. I have quarter hour projections here. The red is 0 to 15. The blue is 15 to 30. The green is 30 to 45. And the yellow is 45 to the top of the hour. So you can see based on these powers here with my B, that's a pretty decent map. I got a lot of colors, different times of day. That looks pretty good, right? If I go to my R's, which is my recurrence. Now, you might see, not a lot of yellow in this. And now, granted, this is my demo database. I haven't really applied my personal programming goals and rules in here. But you might see, like, wait a second, that's a lot of staircase pattern, but it's a lot of red. What is that telling me exactly? Well, it's telling me that my R's are either always front-loaded in my clocks, or I don't have, let's say, this particular song, I'm not moving my quarter hour as much as I want to, right? Scheduling techniques. But again, J to juggle. Look at this. Boom. J. I'm using my keyboard here. If I go to insert elements, you see all these little C's and T's. These are all things that we carry over from version 12. So they're here from you, right? Here for you, as I should say. And by the way, here's a great little tip and trick. Did you know that there's actually a hidden version 12 menu inside of GSelector? Because, yeah, there totally is. Tools, navigation. Now, notice there's a menu template in settings. If I go to menu, F12, that's the keyboard shortcut. Whoa, that should look a little familiar. And by the way, we have some power users that customize this screen and show it on startup. Unlike version 12 that's locked in here, you can customize this if you wanted to. So for example, like you can see here, I want to schedule my logs. I'll click on schedule and boom, just like that, it's going to bring me to my scheduler, right? Really cool stuff. By the way, also, just look how nice GSelector looks. Look at the library, all of my nice colors I have here, the dark mode that we have enabled as well, all these great skins, the new icons in GSelector 5.0, the scalability of these icons. This is just a nice, clean looking piece of software. And by the way, that navigation, look, it's on my left-hand side now, over here. Yeah, you know you can do that? You know you can dock it if you wanted to, or you can close it. You know you can customize this too if you wanted to. So for example, I can go back over here and I can go to my tools. I can go to my navigation. I have both templates to organize here, right? I also have, as well as tools, navigation, and some settings to adjust how I want to customize that version 12 navigation. I always tell users from version 12, you know, the idea here is we're trying to bring you into, I say 2020, but the reality is we're talking about 2010s programming here for the most part. And then, of course, we're evolving with those 2020s. So there's a lot of really great features you can do here, right? And so I want to incorporate some of those goals and those rules in that process. So the goals and balance, right? Understand that I have these attributes and I can expand sound code. And you can see I have pop here. And I might make that pop something like, I don't know, something that pops in my brain, like something like this, right? A pop record. It's nice and color coded if you wanted to. This is live and dynamic information. I can see that I have 76.3% of my library is pop. If I wanted to, let's just say, give a little extra love to an artist, Adele, I'm in Vegas, it's coming to town, right? I can go and shift this up. So now Adele's average turnover is 2 hours and 40 minutes. That's some of these goals that we're talking about versus the rules, right? Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Whereas in GSelector, we have the idea of I want you to do this and I don't want you to do that. When we say things like GSelector gives you a much better music log, think of your gold records, right? Back in version 12, it's the index card stack. If I pick the next available song, I pick it, I put it to the back of the stack. In GSelector, we look at the entire category. So if you have 5 songs and the 4th song has the highest score, GSelector's not picking the next song, it's picking the best song as defined by you, right? That's some of the idea, some of the technology that we're trying to talk about here. Of course, not saying my changes. We were just joking about a meeting today. The F2 in version 12. How many times I've been bitten making clock changes in version 12. So much easier over here in GSelector. And by the way, just because I'm bouncing around here, let's talk about some of those clocks here, right? Talking about how I can take one of these elements and I can copy clocks to all of the stations in my enterprise. How huge is that? That's great when you're building radio stations, you're making changes. Or for example, you have that Sunday morning PSA programming. You make it one element, right? Take that one single file. And I'm going to double click on this. You'll notice here's my main tab I was going through beforehand, right? I'm going to load up this screen over here. Look at all my metadata, lots of metadata here for you to control. But there's also a multi-station tab here as well, where I can activate the single song across my entire enterprise. I can have global or station-specific attributes. I can maintain a sense of uniformity across my enterprise. That's huge. You combine that with those clocks, right? The assignment grid and GSelector's flex clocks, where I can schedule clocks down to the minute or up to the hour or the 24 hours a day. Like for example, I like to, when I have my flex clocks, I switch to 15 minutes. And now look at this. I can drag my clock and have a 30-minute clock, or I can expand it here and have a full 6-hour clock. So if you're a rolling clock station, you might just have one ginormous clock per day. Or for me, I would use it for my syndicated programming. So my 7 to midnight, I have a syndicated programming, hour 1, segment 1, hour 2, segment 3, hour 4, segment 4, stuff like that. Before I would have to have a Monday, hour 1, Monday, hour 2, so on and so forth. Now with these flex clocks, I can have one 5-hour Monday clock. Sporting events, super helpful as well. New Year's Eve programming, holiday programming. Oh, it's just going to be great to have that flexibility as well. I'm going to discard my changes here, go back to my default grid. I'm going to jump here to the goals aspect and talk about how we have unbreakable and breakable goals and rules, right? These are not tiebreakers. These are integrated goals and rules. And for example, just to give you a couple here, look at this. You might be intimidated by this. No. This is empowering to you to give you controls, right? So you might think to yourself, okay, days out of hour. Do I use that goal or rule? Maybe I don't. Then don't worry about it. Move on to something you care about. And if you don't know what something is, we have look at that. F1 Dynamic Help Guide. Look at this. Breaking down all of the goals and rules, right? And kudos to Teresa, by the way, because we had to update all of these images with the brand new look of GSelector, the dark mode, and all of that great stuff. So it is awesome. Just such a wealth of information here. I'm just going to scroll randomly, and I'm going to go back up for a second because I want to show you some of these rules here. So you can see, look at this. Min-sep breakdown, no repeat breakdown. We talked about this a couple weeks ago in one of our videos. And of course, as always, you can check out the archive over at rcsworks.com/rcs-live, just so you know. And we're talking about all the great features here in GSelector, right? And if you're converting from something like Selector version 12 or Selector version 15, don't forget, we're also here to help you. There's an onboarding team. We convert all of your data over into GSelector, so you maintain those schedules, those clocks, those songs, the metadata. We are here to help assist you in getting you comfortable with this new piece of software, right? We totally get it, right? Because let's be honest, there is going to be a time, I'm going to say this right now, there's going to be a time where Selector version 12, right? Windows is evolving. That's just a fact. GSelector is moving with Windows. We're constantly adding, as I said, 5.0 has a bunch of behind-the-scene features so we can have another 10 years of GSelector. But if Windows does something where they disable DOS, we're going to have a conversation, right? So let's get you ahead of this curve. And by the way, there's some great incentives right now as well, just so you know. In regards to RCS Academy, some great discounts there. We've had a lot of our version 12 users. We're going to work with you in regards to contracts as well, so we can convert you very easily over to that of GSelector for free, by the way, if you want to do that. So you can always reach out to sales@rcsworks.com with Kat and Aaron. They'll help you out there. Or, as I said, just comment here on any one of these mediums, either Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, or Twitter Live. It will put you in touch with the right person as well, though. But the idea here is we're trying to help you and ease you into this great GSelector experience, right? Utilizing those goals and rule-based scheduling, not just the next song, but the best song, or some great features. I included this, goals, bands, time. This is a multi-attribute timed segue band. That sounds very loaded, but all it means is that we're having segue bands across multiple attributes. So for example, you can have something like, don't play a song with a tempo of 1 into a song with a mood of 1, right? That is a mood killer, a transition killer in programming. Well, now you can have both those attributes. Want to know what I did? So I had essentially a classic hits station, and it was a fun, upbeat station going up against a classic rock. So the idea was that we really wanted to be heavy on the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. And so the idea is if we had a pre-1969 song, that could have been a polarizing song for us, right? Because it dates us. The fun, upbeat at workstation playing, let's say, a little CCR, it starts dating it just a little bit, right? And so what we do here is, we had a couple rules and restrictions on era pre-1969. But then in addition to that, let's just say we had a research attribute. You have media-based, media monitors research integrated with your GSelector, and you can assign those research attributes. Like you can see here, RCS hot AC negative. That's essentially a low research scoring element, right? We assign that to a song. So now I know that, let's just say if I have an era pre-1969, there's a 50-50 chance my users, my listeners, might jump ship, right? That's the idea. And then if I have a research attribute, hot AC negative, there's a 50-50 chance that my listener may switch the dial. Well, if I have an era pre-1969 into a research attribute, hot AC negative, there's a very, very good chance that I have just lost my listener, right? And before, you had to go and manually massage all those logs. But we all know you're in charge of multiple logs now. Gone are the days of a 1-to-1 PD to station ratio. So now you're overseeing 4 logs. So we're macro managing our programming. And now we can go and use these rules so you're not finding and fishing for bad transitions. Nay, you're identifying and you're telling GSelector, don't do that transition, right? A much different type of mindset in regards to programming, right? So really cool stuff you can do here with multi-attribute time segue bands. Again, that's goals, bands, time. A little pro tip for our current GSelector users: when you're adding a brand new time band, obviously you're starting from the top to the bottom, right? So if you're saying don't play a tempo of 1 into a mood of 1, you want to pick, obviously, the add time band would be tempo first. Yes, we do have the next version of GSelector. We already have an enhancement built in so we can have cross back and forth. So for example, if you have mood of 1 into tempo of 1, it's going to flip it as well and give it both tempo, mood, mood, tempo. That's coming down the pipeline as well, just so you know. We thought about that as well. Let's see here. Some other cool things. Again, if you have any questions or comments, you can get them in here too. We're answering for you, talking about all the great things with GSelector. We talked about the enterprise aspect with the stations. We talked about having the navigation under tools and navigation with the menu that's over here. The goal and rule-based scheduling based on score. So that, for example, we pick the highest scoring song, not the next song. Multi-attribute time segue bands and flex clocks. Where I'm going to touch on Selector to Go, which is your remote scheduling option. And remember, with Zetta, we're live integrated with our automation software. So when I schedule a log in GSelector, I'm going to schedule a log in Zetta at the same time. When Zetta drops a song due to time, that song is instantly reconciled over in GSelector. Treat them as one workflow. That's huge. Think of your ASCAP, BMI, Sound Exchange, which, by the way, are in here as well. If you don't know that, it's under the interface. I'm going to jump over here to interface and then association. Pick your country. We're here in the United States. And so you see there's DMCA and there's a Sound Exchange report right there. Or you go to the interface export. There's an ASCAP BMI saved in there as well. But now we're not reconciling manually. We're doing it automatically. And, forbid anything ever happens where, you have, let's say, a user, you're doing it by paper and by hand. You forget a couple songs. All of a sudden you get flagged. We don't want that. We want live, real-time reconciliation with very minimal involvement. You can do that with Zetta and GSelector integration. So really, really cool stuff there as well. So as I mentioned earlier, aside from customizing your entire GSelector experience, look how amazing this looks. This is a nice looking piece of software right here. Color code it the way you want, organize it. I used to have, let's say, certain attributes that I was okay with letting them go and schedule around, but at the same time, I wanted to know visually what was happening in my editor. I mean, look at this. I could jump to my editor right now. Again, everything has my history window right here. I know there's some windows, some users like to dock it here on the right-hand side, have a nice window here. Look at that. It just looks great, right? Quarter-hour scheduling, all of that great stuff. And there's highlighting, there's things you can do with thresholds. We're not even talking, we're just skimming the surface. And we're here, part of the role of the RCS Live is to get you comfortable in switching and pivoting to GSelector because we know this is awesome. We have tons of programmers who swear by GSelector who came from version 12 like myself. And part of the onboarding process is we convert that data for you and make it so it's an easy transition for you and your team with very little downtime as well. And we could discuss that more if you want. And as I said, we have some great resources with RCS Academy, some very, very, very extensive discounts and incentives for RCS Academy for new GSelector users, as well as options for, what am I forgetting here? Oh, converting your contract over, upgrading to GSelector. We got some free deals there too for you as well, right? Let's see here. I'm going to go to my little caption here, my graphics here. Now is the time to ask your questions. Just so you know, this is kind of like your 2-minute, 30-second warning here. So if you got questions for me, now is the time. Reviewing just some of the RCS lives we have coming up in just the future. So if you got any questions for me, now is the time. And let's see here. Boom. I see Andres here. I'll give it 1 second. Right. So some great RCS lives coming up. Andres was asking over here, how do I spread? I think it's spread. I got you. The same artist in 130, please. User goals, bands, time. Yep. So, I mean, there's two options doing it, right? So typically you can do the goal, which is going to be take the two of these and spread them as best you can, right? Something like goal and vocalist. Now I have this split between radial and linear. Radial is a circle around the spin. Think of Wednesday at noon. We're looking at Tuesday at 11, Thursday at 1 o'clock, a circle around it. Linear is we're looking at Wednesday from midnight to 11:59 p.m. I have that split because I like that control, right? And so, yes, exactly. Right, Aaron? We are here for you. to update to GSelector. 100%, right? Aaron will be more than happy to assist you in that. And so we're talking about the goals, right? So typically, now we have vocalist minimum separation. If you're like me, I don't like the goals for vocalist because I want the absolute. You'll never play within this window. And we did this video last week, just so you know. It's this rotation rules window with minimum separation going to vocalist min sep. That's over here. Some great rules there for you. That's that video from last week. We talked all about adding those minimum separations. So great question there too, right? All right. Last call for questions. Look at this, Di. I got it under 30 minutes this time. I was very, very efficient today, just like GSelector, right? So listen, we got some great topics coming up. Next week, as I mentioned, we're going to be live at CRS. That's over in Nashville. So I think we'll do something fun. Maybe we'll do a quick little live event or something over there over at CRS. If you're going to be there, let us know, and we'll touch base. We can talk about GSelector 5.0. Talk about being a beta user or some other softwares like Zetta or Revma or Acquira or whatever you want to talk about. You know me. If you see me at these conferences, I'm just walking around talking about programming. That's what we do, right? Absolutely. Listen, thank you so much for checking us out. Don't forget the archive over at rcsworks.com /RCS-live. And I'll see you next Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern time for RCS Live. I'm Nate. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.